This is an AVNation special. My name is Tim Albright. I am your host. April 25th of 2024 was a huge day for those of us that are NFL fans, the National Football League. That is draft day. And for the New York Giants, it was an especially special day because they were kicking off their new draft room provided by Image Engineering and Crestron Electronics. With us to talk about that process and how the Giants have leveraged technology to make their draft day and days afterwards better. First and foremost is Ty Siam from the New York Giants. Welcome, sir.
Thank you very much for having me.
Absolutely. Ian Bottiglieri. Ian is from Imagine. Welcome, sir.
Hi, thanks for having me.
Absolutely. And of course, our buddy Brad Hintze from Crestron. Welcome, sir.
Hey, Tim. So good to see you.
Good to see you. Good to see you. Ty, I'm going to start with you on this. Overall question here is how did the New York Giants get here? How did we get to the point where, your typical workflow for the draft room just wasn't cutting it, wasn't getting you there? How did you guys make that jump to say, okay, we're gonna take this away from whiteboards and more into a more digital space?
Yeah, so I think it was a natural step for us in terms of continuing the modernization of the processes that we had within the organization as a whole. So, we've had various initiatives over the last, 5 to 6 years of kind of centralizing our data infrastructure and standardizing the way that we're inputting information and getting access to third-party vendors. And we're finally kind of at a point where we had a tremendous amount of information on players, teams, and processes. And we wanted to kind of centralize that to make it more efficient, to have a showcase room to kind of demonstrate the power of the information that we had at our hands. So Joe Shane, our general manager, he kind of came in with the vision of, hey, this room, it'll work for now, but we really got to step it up. We've really got to find ways to integrate all of this great work that we're doing and get it at our fingertips. So, fortunately, he had a vision for what that space would be, and he came from a place that had kind of an updated view of what those systems and what that kind of looked like for them, and kind of tasked our team with, hey, go out, see what's out there, see how to go about getting this done. So.
Well, Ian, I'll jump on here really quickly because how do you take that vision when a client comes to you, especially something like this, right? And I don't want to play too much on this, but any NFL team, because there's a finite number of them, that's going to be a marquee client, that's going to be a marquee space, right? So there's a finite number of NFL teams, so a finite number of draft rooms in existence. But how do you take that idea from a client that has a vision and then pull all the parts and pieces together to make it a reality?
Yeah, so for us, we do a lot of work with various NFL teams, and NFL teams, especially in data analytics, scouting, player personnel, how these guys use technology is very unlike many other industries. They're power users. And so our first step is really meeting with the stakeholders. And so meeting with the folks from the GM down to everybody who is going to be programming the content, creating all of the back-end systems, and really understanding what everyone from top to bottom is trying to get out of the system. And we take that information in and we work to really figure out what are going to be the best systems, technologies, and workflows that we can integrate to bring that vision to life. And so typically we work in a couple different phases and iterations to really hone in on what that vision is and how we can help them bring it to life. There's a lot of education on the types of technologies and what may or may not work for the team, and then getting their feedback to figure out how we can properly institute that into the architecture and design of the system.
And then, Brad, from your perspective from a manufacturer, an integrator partner comes in and says, hey, by the way, we've got this really awesome vision. What can you guys do to help, right? Because obviously there are some off-the-shelf solutions that Crestron has, but in reading the case study that you guys did and watching the video, there are some pieces that aren't exactly, out of the box functionality.
Yeah, I think that one of the things that's happened since we started talking about this partnership is I've gotten a lot of phone calls from all the other NFL teams. And some of them have called and said, hey, how do we get something like that? And every time what I say to them is the team had a vision for what they wanted. And then they worked with the integrator to help flesh that out. So it became a partnership to deliver on the team's vision. And I think that's a really important element of this kind of technology is that you could do so many things, right? The world is your oyster. But it really sings when you come in with a clear thing that you want to accomplish, and then you figure out how to apply that. And I think that the partnership with Ian and team and Ty helped make that really valuable. But the critical linchpin was, this is what we want to accomplish. This is how we want it to work. Let's go go make that happen together.
Ty, go back for a second to the vision. What were some of the must-haves, the absolute critical parts and pieces, kind of versus to the this would be nice if it did X, Y, or Z?
Yeah, I mean, I think accessibility was the main piece that we wanted to drive home, where it's like any user could come into that room and based on their levels of sophistication as a user, be able to pull up draft boards and informations about players, pull up information about teams, and really drive content, whether that be film, process and workflow orientation stuff that we have within our system, or just the data we have about players or teams. And so being able to do that in a simple way, but have it still at the, a fingertip touch away from making that room to come to life and have things kind of get deployed around that room. Those were kind of the loose-ended visions that we had that were, I'd call them must-haves. Like it's like, hey, if we're going to invest in this room, then it's got to be able to turn on that for us.
Well, then how did that? And I'm not asking for a number here, so don't don't think I'm asking that. But what was that process of saying, okay, these are our must-haves. Now this is what we're willing to spend on it, right? This is our budgeting process. This is how we're categorizing and going. This is absolutely have to have, and this is how much we're budgeting for it.
Yeah, so I mean, fortunately, we had that vision come from the top and like drive, hey, this is something we want. So with it, how do we go about doing it? And so that came together with my group on the data and innovation side, with our information technology group, with our facilities group, and we kind of put our heads together saying, what does this even look like? And frankly, we didn't know what we didn't know. So with that said, we said, hey, maybe here's a bullet point of some things we want a room to do and the way we think we could lay it out, because we did have the physical space kind of constrained out, basically. Like we weren't going to build out from the room. We were going to say, this is the space we have. What can we do with it?
Pardon the term. Was it a blank slate or a blank piece of canvas then? And you could just say, everything in the room can go and it blank walls?
That was pretty much the mindset we had, was basically strip it down to the studs. And then from there, what can we do? So we went out to proposal for that and kind of came at a couple different integrator vendors. Image Engineering was one that came highly recommended to us from some work they did with other NFL teams. And frankly, they blew us away with their response on that, because they basically not only answered what we wanted to do, they asked us the right questions to make us think about how we were going to use that room on a regular basis. They challenged us to think about, hey, don't only think about just that draft night. What else are you going to want to use it for? And then they gave us ideas that we would have never come up with on our own as it related to the configurability of the room, the ease of use from a simple user to an advanced user to a power user, if you will, from our data and IT groups. And they brought the room to life in the response they gave to our proposal. And with that, they said, hey, here's the light version that can get you what you want, but you're probably going to be limited in many ways. Here's the middle version that's going to give you a lot of what you want. And then here's that advanced version that's going to give you full-scale customizability and the ability to grow and transform that room as you guys continue to grow as a group too. So as they gave us that, each one had a different price tag, obviously. And leadership from our task force group to Joe, who believed in the vision and wanted it to begin with, to buy-in from leadership and ownership with Mr. Tisch and Mr. Mara. They came forward and said, yep, we're in. We'll do this. It's an investment in what we can do from a draft and free agency and every other process that we do as a football operation, and bought in for us on that side of things.
Ty was obviously talking about you guys' three-step, the three different versions. Talk for a second about who all you worked with, both with the Giants, but also with internally and your connections at Crestron. Who was involved with this design process?
When we start the project out, initially it was myself and Nick, who's our director of installations, that were involved in the design, working with Joe and Ty and the facilities folks from the New York Giants, to understand their vision, the needs, functionality of the room. And so Nick worked on the architecture and the design of the room. And at that same time, we started to integrate our 3D and graphic arts team to also help. And so we're kind of unique in a sense that as integrators, we come from a live events background. And so we have a team of graphic artists and render artists that are also on our staff. And so when we go through the process, they start to help us visualize what the room could look like, first in wireframes, and then as we start to work more and more with the client to hone that vision, ending up in 3D photorealistic renderings of the space from multiple different vantage points. So the Giants were able to really see, how the room would look based on wherever they were in the space. We also had a team of mechanical, electrical, and show controls engineers who were involved. Again, we're unique. We have a couple different industries that we work in, so we pull those guys from that industry, and they were helping design different infrastructure pieces of the room. One of the most unique pieces is kind of the mounting system for our LCD matrix, because anybody who has installed an LCD matrix before kind of knows how difficult those might be to get them to look really good, all of the alignment's great. And so we actually designed unique bespoke systems for this installation so that we could install all the displays on a single moving plane. So when we need to do service or anything like that, the whole matrix wall will come out from the building. We can go and work on it, and then it can be put back into position. And then the final step is our fabrication team and our installation and integration team, who are the ones to actually bring it all together on site, along with our programmers who work hand in hand with the Giants to make sure that we really get all the different user modes that they're looking for, the graphical layouts, and all of that on the screens, exactly how they're looking to see it and utilize it. And then the last step, and that's kind of woven throughout, is working with our partners at Crestron to make sure that we're validating the system, the way that we're designing it, the different pieces of equipment that we're utilizing are going to be able to do exactly what we're designing them to do, get that functionality that the client's looking for. So all throughout the whole process, Crestron's also involved, assisting us and making sure that we're looking at everything correctly.
Well, and Brad, one of the things in the pieces that you guys wrote about was using a full stack solution, right? Why is it important? This specific time we're talking about Crestron as a full stack, but why is it important to standardize on a system like a full stack solution like that?
Well, in our view, across the whole campus of the training facility, right, they have a whole host of technology needs and solutions. And so when you go to manage and deploy technology across a whole building, how can you do that most efficiently to achieve the user experience needs? Like, what do you want to accomplish in those rooms? How do you make sure it stays up and running the whole time? And how do you support it? And when you can go to a single vendor to get that, that's super important. Also, in a room like the draft room, if you think about the technologies that are involved to accomplish this problem, there's a lot, right? You've got video conferencing, you've got the ability to call on FaceTime, right? You're looking at web content, you're looking at video content, you're looking at broadcast content, you're looking at the application that has all the player information, which is super cool. For me, watching that on the screen was one of those transformational moments where I really understood the value of the room. And then you have to be able to switch that. There's wireless presentation, right? All of those technologies in one room. And so how do you make sure that they're working natively together and in a consistent way? And so having a full stack solution that knows how to bring all that together is really the best way to accomplish that.
Off of what Brad just said and Ty, that was something that was really important for us in the design of this room, was to understand the other Crestron technologies that were deployed around the building, but then also be able to translate that into a situation where anyone could come into that room and be able to just start using it intrinsically, not have any questions about how it should be utilized, and really the flexibility that we have with the Crestron control to be able to build the front end user interface, which is relatively streamlined for a more streamlined view and control for folks who might not be power users. So coaches, scouts, they just want to be able to put video content up and navigate around very easily. But then when we have Ty's team and they're in draft mode and they need to run the system at a red line and get everything out of it that it could possibly offer, be able to program the control system to unlock those additional features for them has been really important. And now as we go around the rest of the building, upgrading team meeting rooms and conference rooms, it's all based on that ability that anyone can walk in and be able to make full use of the technology easily.
Ty, draft day was April 25th this year, right? And you mentioned this in talking about what Ian and the team at Image Engineering were asking you. How are you going to use this space after this day, right? And for those of us that follow the NFL, draft day is actually a long weekend, and it can be exciting depending on your team. It cannot be exciting depending on your team. But how have you used it? Like, what have been some of the things that you've used after those days in April since then?
Yeah, I mean, it's a living and breathing room. So it services us during basically every major roster building portion of the calendar year. So the draft is one of the primary ones that come to mind, and with the popularity that the draft has, and that's a 3-day window, but that's a month long of meetings in April leading up to that. That's a month long of meetings in February as we prepare to go out and watch the workout circuits and the pro days and get information about these prospects. And it's another month long between, a combination of training camp and December, kind of prepping on what we know about this draft class to kind of launch into that landscape. But so that's the draft side of things, but it also services us on the pro side when we're about to do roster cut downs, going from 90 players down to 53-man rosters. So every team around the league is about to cut 37 players through a 1 to 2 week portion of time. And we've got to allocate and inventory all those players around the other 31 teams. So we're constantly having meetings in there during that month of August, trying to identify what that landscape looks like. We have constant huddles, whether that be around trade deadlines or what we call our advance meetings for the process of deploying information to our coaching staffs and our scouting staffs to prepare for the upcoming opponents that we're about to play. And from there, it can do anything else we want it to. So, hey, somebody's going to have a Zoom. That'd be a cool place to have it. Something we need a FaceTime, so a prospect as just a call or check-in. Hey, that's a cool place to have it. So we have weekly meetings in there for various reasons, but all of those things that I mentioned, the trade deadline, free agency, the draft, the cut down process, those are formal things that we built software around that is empowered by the ease of access to the information around the sides of the screens.
Ian, from your perspective, and talking about what Ty just described there, again, outside of the draft window, and we'll start talking about it like that instead of simply draft day. Ty just illustrated it's about a 6-month window here. But beyond that, what are some of the areas that you guys have found that Crestron has been able to, quite frankly, provide kind of the backbone and the underlying technology to make some of those things happen, whether that is, cutting down on the roster or meeting with prospects?
The two main things that were most important for us when designing this room, we've already talked about ease of control. The second was matrix routing and being able to take a whole host of inputs and place them anywhere we want in the room. And one of the first things that Ty and Joe came to us and said is that we need to be able to use this room outside of the draft as a workroom, as a meeting space, a place for scouts to have workstations. And so part of our design and our architecture that was so important was, how can we take any video input and get it anywhere in the room? And so we have a large 22-foot wide matrix display on the front wall, and then we have two flanking screens that are in the back of the room as well, and we can route anything anywhere to that room, and it's because of the matrix routing with Crestron.
All right, Brad, same kind of question is from the manufacturer provider here. What were some of the things that you were kind of excited to see that you guys were able to provide?
As Ian mentioned, certainly control, right? Because you have to make it super easy to use. The video matrixing so that you have all that flexibility from all of the sources. And then, of course, one of the things which is a testament to the video matrixing that he was talking about was we wanted to introduce Air Media to the room so that you get wireless presentation. Super easy to just pass the Connect adapter around the room whenever somebody wants to present, and it was very easy for them to add that to the room because of the video matrixing. And then, of course, the support for video conferencing and the various services, Zoom, Teams on occasion as well. And so all of those, as Ian said, that's full stack, right? For Crestron, the areas that are super important for us are content, video matrixing, collaboration, video conferencing, intelligent video, and then, of course, control, right? Those three elements. And this room really brings all of those three things to life.
Ty, I'm going to ask a financial question here. I'm not going to ask for a number, so don't, But now that you have worked in the space, obviously through draft day, we're well into the NFL season here. What has been the ROI for the Giants, and quite frankly, how are you measuring that ROI with man hours or what have you?
Yeah, I mean, I think it's a difficult question to ask because a lot of the things that we're doing is proprietary in nature. So, you don't necessarily have a measurement or a proxy for what the return number actually is. But the way I like to think about it is, at a minimum, if you make one better decision, that can save you, or it can make you or break you to the tune of millions of dollars, right? So, I mean, we're talking about signing franchise level players, and we're talking about contracts that span anywhere from 1 to 6 years, and we talk about the average per year on those contracts. Like, there's massive decisions being made in that room because of the information we have access to. That said, I do think there is a legitimate time and efficiency benefit that we've seen that turn that month-long of meetings in April and not necessarily take away meeting time. It certainly makes the meeting time more efficient, but it actually gets us to the bottom line on top. Let's talk about the player. Let's not spend time to go gather information to talk about the player. And that being a click of a button away is so different than 3-4 years ago where, hey, somebody's responsible for this. They got to turn the page. They got to open the spreadsheet. They got to scan the web page. They got to go to the right tab, and then they've got to, communicate that information in the room. Instead, right now it's, oh, yep, got my answer. And that's kind of the methodology that we built in the room that, frankly, we take for granted only 2 years into this process. But that efficiency saves man hours, makes those hours spent doing work more efficient, and talking about the bottom line.
Ian, I'm going to take a little different stab at this with you, because we mentioned this at the top. You've done this a couple different times, not necessarily a draft room, but you've put implementations for other NFL teams. What's been your experience with the way that they kind of categorize ROI and the spend on technology?
Yeah, I think for us it's very much the same of what Ty was saying, is that the teams are really looking at this as how are we able to make better decisions or decisions faster? What can we do to reduce our time trying to find the information, where we'd rather just be able to click a button and be able to see everything, see the stats, see the video, see all of the notes on the players. And that's really been the biggest thing for us when we are trying to understand how a team wants to use one of these rooms and how they want it designed. That's one of the key metrics that we utilize, is what are you really trying to get to, and then how can we support you to get there faster. And we spent a lot of time with Ty and his team actually talking about how they would build the back end system so that they could make the best use of control and pixels to see the information they need, and that it was displayed as easily and succinctly as it could possibly be.
All right. Brad, last word here is whether you're talking to an NFL team or you're talking to a university, a Fortune 100, how do you guys communicate that ROI? Because technology, I don't care who it is, it costs money, but you still have to, from a budgeting standpoint, from a CFO standpoint, kind of, justify it as much as possible. So how do you talk about ROI when it comes to technology spend?
Yeah, so we focus on a lot about what do we enable you to do, right? Because at the end of the day, the investment is to enable greater efficiency on the team. As we connect it to technology investments, then we talk about, are you deploying a gadget, or are you deploying a technology platform that you can evolve and grow and expand with, right? Is this something that you will deploy 2 years from now, 3 years from now, have to rip it all out? Or will that technology continue to get better through software enhancements? Or can you expand it as your needs evolve and change? So that's one of the key areas where, again, back to the full stack conversation, we deliberately invest and build our technology through that lens of these technology platforms that continue to grow and get better. DM and VX, Intermedia, Flex video conferencing, and our control platform, right? They get better over time, and you can continue to add and change and evolve that deployment without ripping it all out. And we think that that's a tremendous value in the total ROI calculation.
All right, very good. Gentlemen, thank you so much. Ty Siam from the New York Giants. Thank you, sir. If somebody doesn't know how to get a hold of the New York Giants or you, how would they do that?
I'm on LinkedIn, and pretty unique name, so find me there.
All right, very good. Ian Bottiglieri from Image Engineering. Thank you, sir. How do people connect with you?
Yeah, so they can find us at imageengineering.com, and also they can search for me on LinkedIn.
All right. Mr. Hintze?
Crestron.com, and then LinkedIn as well.
All right, guys, thanks so much. For me, for Tim Albright, don't follow me, but go by the website, AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv. You will find this program and a host of others, all that and more, at AVNation.tv. That's AVNation.tv.
The network for the AV industry.
What are you listening to?
This
This is AV.
This
is AV Nation.
This is AV Nation.